I'm your host, Angela Luna. Abby Hugo joins us again today, and she is discussing her story about Northwest possibly raising the prices of fees and tuition. So tell us a little bit about your story.
So pretty much the Board of Regents, at their most recent meeting right before spring break, approved an increase in room and board as well as a booking for an increase in tuition, which means depending on how everything works out with the state and funding, we might have an increase in tuition as well.
Awesome. Now, were you able to get some interviews with the Board of Regents, and who did you interview?
I interviewed Vice President of Finance Stacy Carrick and got some information from her. She was able to provide obviously lots of insight because she works so closely with numbers. And I also talked to the Board of the Chair of Regents, Patrick Carr, and got his intake on it.
Awesome. Now, what was their feedback from it? Did they say that for sure this is going to happen, or?
Well, the estimated, all the numbers are still estimated, and there still are lots of factors in play with enrollment and with the state appropriations and funding that will possibly affect whether or not it will be decided. But the final numbers for tuition will be decided by summer, like May or June.
Awesome. Now, when it goes all into increasing tuition and prices, did they say how that process works, or what does the process go into that?
So the finance department focuses hard calculating on projected enrollment and trying to balance the budget in terms of, once again, what the state provides and how to kind of be able to still have the funding we need in order to keep up the high quality of academics here on campus.
Okay, awesome. Now, was it kind of tough getting this story together, or did you have any issues getting interviews or getting more information?
Well, I actually attended the Board of Regents meeting as they discussed these changes as well as a few others, and so that was nice to get to hear straight from the source, something's that will be happening, and then I was able to then, after that, get in contact with those people to kind of clarify some different factors and the numbers.
Awesome. Now, do many students so far know about this, or is this completely brand new information? Since the booking was only officially approved right before spring break, I think that this is new news to lots of the students. Awesome. Now, do you think there could be another follow-up story by chance, getting interviews from students thinking, if they agree with this or not, or?
Yeah, obviously, room and board and tuition, all of the costs to attend here affect all of the students greatly, and so depending on what does work out in final decisions of tuition price, obviously it would be great to follow up and see what students think on it.
Oh, awesome. Now, with this story, and it's a pretty big ordeal. I mean, do you know what the fees by chance were? The increase, how much it would be per credit hour, or?
For tuition, the projected right now would be to increase about a possible 2.1% for tuition, which would be about $80 per semester if you're taking 15-ish credit hours. Mm-hmm. And then room and board will increase 2.5%.
Okay, and the room and board, would that only affect students who are on campus?
Yes, I believe so. It would only affect on-campus housing.
Okay, and what were these fees exactly for? They are, what programs are they trying to implement more on campus, or?
Pretty much it's just a necessity to balance out some other changes in the budget so that they can keep everything as it was. And obviously they're always working towards improvements and being able to adjust things for the best.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Abby, for coming on today. When we come back, we have James coming on, and we're going to talk about Shangela, who just came on campus. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Story Behind the Story. I'm still Angela Luna, and we are here at the Student Union. It's Student Media Day, and James here had the opportunity to meet with Shangela. She is a well-known drag queen, and if many of you fans have heard of RuPaul's Drag Race, Drag Race All-Stars,
So I know James is really excited to share his story. So
well, thanks
tell
for
us
having
about
me
it.
back. I'm
Of
glad to be back
course,
on the
yeah.
show. Honestly, this is probably my favorite story I've ever gotten to write for the Missourian. Honestly, I called dibs on this story back in January because it's like, oh, Shangela's coming. I want this. This is mine.
Right.
Like literally before spring break, I wrote on the board, I call dibs. But it was so much fun. She brings so much personality, and it was just getting to see her perform. She literally was so funny. I think I've never laughed that hard ever.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's some of the things where you two were able to discuss about?
Well, first of all, I talked about like how she got into drag. She started doing drag back in 2009.
Okay.
And then within a year of that, she was on RuPaul's Drag Race Season 2, where she was the dreaded first one sent home in a reality show that's never a fun thing. Then she came back the following season for Season 3, where she placed in the top 5.
Okay.
And then she's also appeared on a number of TV shows like Bones, Glee, The Mentalist, Two Broke Girls, one of my personal favorite shows, as well as a couple other shows like Toddlers and Tiaras, Dance Moms.
Yep.
And most recently, she just returned for All Stars 3 of RuPaul's Drag Race, where she placed in the top 4.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was just really great getting to sit down with her and just talk and like have a real moment and just getting to meet one of my idols, because personally I'm a big Shangela fan. Like I'm really big into Drag Race and that sort of thing. It was really cool getting to meet her, and like you never think you're actually going to get to meet your heroes or your celebrity idols, but it was so much fun getting to meet her.
Yeah.
Her show was awesome. It was like 2 hours of laughing, dancing, comedy. It even included one student, after one of the songs said, hey, could we turn the music down? It's a little loud. She was behind stage doing a costume change. She got on the microphone, did somebody say it's loud? And like she came out there and like talked to that student, and then like every time she said, well, this is gonna be loud, Jenny. Every single time. It was hilarious. But I mean, afterwards, like I had so many people that like knew I was there for the newspaper that wanted to be interviews. It's like, I almost had like 8 interviews for this story, like so I had to pick and choose who I was going to interview. The other person I got to talk to was Tyler Bears. He's a sophomore political science major, and this was also his first drag show, and like he already wants to go see more, and he wants Shangela to come back to our campus, which Shangela also would like to come back if we would like to have her, which please. Just for me, that'd be nice. But it was so much fun. Like I got to go with my friends. Shangela just used the entire Carl Johnson Theater as like her performance. Like she was dancing up and down the aisles. She was death dropping on the stage, which is like when you literally just fall down like you're dead. But it was so much fun. And honestly, this is probably my favorite event that I've ever gotten to cover, because it's like, when are you going to get a drag show on campus?
Yeah.
That's not something you commonly see on a college campus. So getting to have that here, and that SAC was willing to do that type of event, it's just so cool. And it was so much fun getting to just have fun and just laugh. And her comedy was amazing. Like she was impersonating other drag queens, and like she did an entire set of Beyonce music. She was doing single ladies up and down the aisle. That was fun. It was my favorite thing of all, was just that whole Beyonce thing. She did it as her wrap up and was just doing all these different Beyonce songs going up and down the aisles. She was twerking on somebody. It was just so fun. And then also SAC did a couple activities in between the acts. Like they did a catwalk type competition. So 11 students got up there and like had to give their best runway walk. And the person that won got free Shangela merch. And then we also had the lip sync battle, which there was 3 students, myself included, that went up there and lip synced for our lives.
Did you win?
I got second place.
Okay, close.
But I also got to lip sync to Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus. So it was a fun song to get to lip sync to. I think I got the best song. Like I had like a wig on, I had like pink gloves on my hands, I had sunglasses on, I had a tiara.
Ooh.
Like I was like killing it.
Right.
It was like a diva off type thing. It was like, I'm gonna win this.
Awesome.
But it was so much fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, and I bet you that is something you'll never forget. And
Yeah.
hopefully,
I got to take a selfie with Shangela, and like I sent it to one of the group chats I'm in as a meme. It's the happiest day of my life.
Oh,
and
that's
like
awesome.
I will never forget this show. This was so much fun.
Well, I look forward to reading your story more, and thanks again for coming back, James.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, and when we come back, Devin's going to come on, and we're going to talk sports. Stay tuned.
And welcome back into Story Behind the Story here live from Student Media Day at the Student Union. I'm Devin Albertson, the sports director at KZLX, and I'm joined today by Joseph Andrews, the assistant sports editor for Northwest Missourian. And Joe, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Devin. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Your article this week is about Austin Meyer being hired as the women's basketball coach. When exactly was that announced?
That would have been announced last Monday, so the Monday during spring break while everybody was out celebrating spring break.
No days off for journalists, though. So you were there, you were covering it. What did he kind of tell he was assistant for the last 10 years at Northwest, the men's basketball team. What did he tell the guys that he'd recruited to come to that program that he was leaving for the women's side?
The number one thing he kind of mentioned during the press conference to us that he told the guys really he was still at Northwest. He wasn't going far away. He said the team always knew he eventually wanted to become the head coach, but the great part about it is that he can just be right down the hall instead of if he took the other job, he wouldn't be as close anymore.
And of course, Coach McCollum, he kind of talked about how much he trusted Coach Meyer. What did he kind of say in your story and what he told you about Coach Meyer?
Yeah, Coach McCollum told us Oscar Meyer was really just a great person to have, and early on when Northwest was struggling through those first 2 Ben McCollum years, where at that point the program had 3 years without a winning record. So he mentioned that really Oscar Meyer was that person to kind of lean on where he could go home and still know he didn't have to worry about any Oscar deciding to be like, hey, next season I'm gone. He could always trust and know that Oscar Meyer was going to be here.
And that loyalty is really nice to have there. With 10 years with one program as an assistant, now the women's coach. During the press conference, what did he say about becoming the women's coach? What would he really want to emphasize with his coaching style?
With his coaching style, he really emphasized first off that he doesn't want anything to do with that last administration, really. He did give Coach Buck Shield, Michael Smith, credit, but he said it's time to turn around, start reaching out to the alumni again, and then start developing those basic X and O's again, that defense style, that offense style as well.
You know, the men's team, they play really good defense. I think he wants to bring that culture over to the women's side so they can kind of lock down a little more. They've been a little bit looser on defense the last couple of years. So that'll be nice to see. And what was his first action, right after the press conference, like, what's the next thing I'm doing? What did he say there?
He told us actually, so the press conference was the day after his hiring was officially announced, but he told us at the press conference that that really first thing he did, he reached out to the men's basketball program and called all the guys. Then he called his team that he had to give them a heads up that, hey, I'm going to be your coach. Here's kind of the basic expectations I have. We'll talk about it next week when you guys get back into town. And then really from there, he started to hit the road and kind of hit the basics of starting to develop next year's team.
And he's one of the better recruiters in the area, so that's one thing they can really lean on him is bringing talent into the program, high school talent, to infuse this program with a little more talent to kind of join the likes of Mallory McAndrews and last year co-freshman of the year Jalen Haggard. What did Haggard say about Austin Meyer being hired as head coach?
Jalen was pretty excited actually. She mentioned that they've known Austin from bus rides and stuff on road trips. Yep. They know the culture that he has had, so they're really just willing to put in the work to do what it takes to start the fundamentals of translating that culture over to the women's program. It's not going to happen magically overnight. They're going to have to put in a whole lot of work within this offseason and if not really next season as well.
Yeah, you used to have the kind of young roster like Northwest has, only 3 seniors coming back from next year with a bunch of sophomores. We'll see what the freshmen they bring in. So we have such a young roster. It's almost easier to mold them into your style of play. That way they can kind of buy in, especially with the losing seasons they've had over the last few seasons. This is their 3rd head coach in 3 seasons. They'll be able to buy in and maybe bring some stability to the program so they can succeed long term.
Yeah, that's really what they want to do here. I think really this Oscar Meyer hire by the university was a big part of that because he's been at Northwest since 2003. He's only been a coach since 2008, but before that he was a player from 2003 and a graduate assistant under Coach Tapmeyer.
Yep.
So he knows what it takes. He's been through the process, and now he really just wants to start getting that success back over to the women's program. There was a time in this town of Maryville where the city could be excited about both teams, but now the last couple of years haven't been as well. But he wants to start bringing that back.
And of course, Austin, he's a very well-known basketball player here at Northwest. Scored almost 1,300 points. used to hold the record for most three-pointers made until Zach Snyder came rolling around and blew everybody's record out of the water with the three-pointers. So Austin was a really fun player here at Northwest. He's been a really good assistant coach and an associate head coach the last couple of years, helped Northwest men's team get that national championship, and now with the women's program, we'll see what he can kind of mold them into his image a little bit there and bring that winning culture over to them.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch what he's able to do in these next few years. Obviously, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some work, but I think the hire of Oscar Meyer and then plus whoever he chooses to develop his coaching staff as within the coming weeks, that is going to be just the beginning of a foundation that could possibly grow.
And it's going to be a bright future here at Northwest for the women's program. I'm Devin Albertson, and we will see you next week on Story Behind the Story.